At this time, it is with great pleasure that I call forward our rabbinic intern, Matt Rosenberg, who will be our darshan for this morning.
Thank you, Rabbi Bernhardt. Shabbat Shalom. In this week's Torah portion, Shlach Lecha, God instructs Moses to send 10 explorers into the land of Canaan. Moses wants these scouts or explorers to bring back valuable information about the land. Outside of rabbinical school, I am a geographer. And for me, this section of verses about the expedition is one of my favorites of the Torah. It's in the vein of later interlopers like Columbus, Magellan, James Cook. Moses directs their exploration, saying, "See what kind of country it is. Are the people who dwell in it strong or weak, few or many? Is the country in which they dwell good or bad? Are the towns that they live in open or fortified? Is the soil rich or poor? Is it wooded or not? And take pains to bring back some of the fruits of the land." Similar instructions have been given throughout history to other expeditions. Columbus, Magellan, James Cook. Scout out the land. Find out what's on the other side of that hill, what's on the other side of that ocean. In 1917, the Australian preacher Frank Boreham wrote a book called The Other Side of the Hill. In it, he said, "It is the oldest question in the world and the greatest question in the world. All the pathos and the tragedy of the ages are crammed into it. It was the first question that man asked. It will be the last that he will try to answer. Wherever on this planet you find a man, you find him with eyes turned wistfully towards the distant ranges, repeating to himself again and again the old question, the hill, the other side of the hill. What is on the other side of the hill?" Boreham continued, "That is how geography and everything else came to be. The first man toiling amidst his weedy pastures earned his bread in the sweat of his brow, but often, in the cool of the evening, he sat outside his primitive dwelling and pointed away to the hilltops, here and there that broke the skyline. I wonder," he said 100 times to his companion, "I wonder what is on the other side of that hill." While Boreham claims that the question, "What's on the other side of the hill?" resulted in the development of geography, I venture to suggest that the question also led to the development of religion. For humans are a naturally inquisitive bunch, and we do wish to know even more than the answer to Boreham's question. We also want to know how that hill came to be. If you will, who put that hill where it is. The book of Bereshit, Genesis, begins by teaching how the world came to be. Genesis tells the story of many beginnings, the beginning of the sun, the moon, the stars, the first humans, why childbirth is painful, why we toil year after year for sustenance, the reason behind the rainbow, the reason why humans speak so many different languages. So many answers to so many different questions. Our tradition answers those philosophical, what's on the other side of the hill questions for us, such as what's the meaning of life and what happens when we die. But I'll save those for another opportunity. In our Parsha, the Israelites are in the desert, nearly ready to enter the promised land, the land of Canaan, the land of milk and honey that God promised to Moses and to his ancestors. They are on the precipice, about to enter the land, and it's nearly time. Thus God suggests the exploration. Moses obliges and sends one representative from each tribe to scout the land. The exploration takes 40 days, and when the explorers return, 10 out of 12 of them have very bad news. The land is too dangerous to occupy. The Israelites who heard the news were in an uproar. They were afraid of the danger that awaited should they attempt to overtake the land. Only Joshua and Caleb provided a positive report and suggested that the land and its people could be possessed by the Israelites. Fear of the unknown is a very powerful thing. The Israelites, who had lived for generations and generations under slavery, had just been through a major transition. They've gained freedom and they truly do not know how to handle it. They have complained many, many times, telling Moses that they were better off as slaves in Egypt. Now, as they stand on the precipice of entering the promised land, even after all these Israelites saw the wonders and the miracles that God wrought for them personally, yet they cannot believe that this self-same God who took them out of the land of Egypt would be with them to go into the land, to protect them into the land that they had been promised. They are unbelievers, even though they witnessed the miracles firsthand. So God decrees that none of that generation that experienced the Exodus would live to see the Israelites entering the land of Canaan, save for Joshua and Caleb. The Israelites were fearful of the land. They did not want to fight. They were afraid of an enemy they could not see, and they only heard horrible rumors about. The Duke of Wellington, who was a major military mind of the 19th century, said, "All of the business of war is to endeavor to find out what you don't know." That's what he called guessing what was on the other side of the hill. And that's what happens in our Parsha. Even though the 12 explorers went into the land, the rumors they brought back were so negative. They thought it was too scary, too dangerous, too difficult. Life transitions are difficult. My grandmother, who lived in the same house for more than 50 years, just a few weeks ago was hospitalized at Cedars-Sinai. Then she moved to a skilled nursing facility, and then just last week she moved into the Jewish home. She realized that this would probably be her last home after spending 50 years at the same address in West Los Angeles. It's been a difficult time for her. It's been a difficult transition. Through her experience over the past few weeks, I have a better sense of what it must have meant to those Israelites, what their experience must have been like. For they had been slaves generation after generation. Their parents were slaves, their grandparents were slaves, their great-grandparents were slaves. There was a certain security about their career opportunities in Egypt. They knew they were going to be slaves. But then Moses and God said, "It's time to get up, it's time to go, it's time to leave." What a difficult task, to believe in a new future, a very different future, to get up and to leave the Nile Valley and go over that hill. It was difficult for the Israelites. It was difficult for my grandmother. It's difficult for me. It's difficult for all of us. Change is difficult. It's trite but true. As Plato wrote, everything flows, nothing stands still. Change is the only constant in life. Our Parsha this week shows us how the Israelites struggle with change at the most profound moment in their journey in the wilderness. The idea of their new home in the land of Canaan was too much, too soon. Thus, it would be the second generation that reaped the fruits of the land in Israel. Those who were born in the wilderness, those who moved from camp to camp, ready to settle down. May we all be ready for change in all of its forms throughout our lives, and may God give us strength and fortitude to handle the change. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.